Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and it is Sunday, and it is like summer here in Chicago today, which I am beyond thrilled about. It has been very nice on my deck, but that is not why we are here. We are here to do Breaches of the Week, and as always, before I begin, I'd like to thank the following people that sent me messages, linked me, tagged me, emailed me, whatever it was that you got, that you did to get it in front of me. I really appreciate the help. And that's Jacqueline Wolf, Jason Dance, David Walker, and Susan Brown. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If I missed your name, let me know, and I will do it next week. And with that, let's just get going, because we're going to be talking about an organization called Grow Diaries. Now, they are an online community where marijuana growers can blog about their plants and interact with other marijuana farmers. They suffered a security breach in September of this year. Now, the breach occurred after the company left open two Kibana apps exposed on the internet without any administrative passwords. Now, Kibana apps are normally used by development staff, as the app allows programmers to manage Elasticsearch databases via a simple web interface. Now, due to these features, securing Kibana apps is just as important as securing the database themselves. These two apps granted attackers access to two sets of Elasticsearch databases, one that was storing 1.4 million user records and the second one that was storing more than 2 million user data points. Now, the first one exposed usernames, email addresses, and IP addresses, while the second one also exposed user articles posted on Grow Diaries, as well as the account passwords of people, which was the problem, because they were hashing the passwords using a format called MD5, which is pretty much known bad at this point. We should not be hashing using MD5 anymore, and so these were easily crackable passwords, obviously a serious issue. So if you're a marijuana grower and you use Grow Diaries, heads up, you probably got hit. Moving on, let's talk about JM Bullion. They describe themselves as one of the world's largest sellers of precious metal in the world. You want to go buy gold? Go to them, apparently. Now, according to a breach notification letter sent to customers, which was posted to Reddit, the card details used to make some of those sales may have been skimmed by attackers earlier this year, and it is looking like a MageCart attack. And so heads up, if you've used JM Bullion, you probably, or you might have gotten hit this year. Moving on, let's talk about toy maker giant Mattel. I'm sure most of us, if you have kids, have heard of Mattel. They disclosed that they suffered a ransomware attack in July that impacted some of their business functions, but according to them, did not lead to data theft. They claim no data was exfiltrated. Now, Mattel is the second largest toy maker in the world, with 24,000 employees and in $5.7 billion in revenue. And Mattel is known for doing Barbie, Hot Wheels, Fisher-Price, American Girl, Thomas & Friends, and more. And they're filing their 10Q form with the SEC, disclose that they suffered this attack on July 28th of 2020. So heads up if you have anything to do with Mattel. Again, they said no data was exfiltrated. I hope that's true. Moving on, let's talk about Blackbaud. I want to give you an update on this. If you follow me or listen to these or watch these, we basically have been doing Blackbaud every week, as they have gotten thousands of charities, hospitals, and educational institutions hit due to a data breach that they had months ago. Blackbaud this week confirmed that it has been named as a defendant in 23 separate putative class action lawsuits linked to their ransomware attack in May. And they basically filed this with the SEC for their quarterly earnings for the third quarter. And to quote basically Blackbaud, to date, we have been named as a defendant in 23 putative consumer class action cases, 17 in U.S. federal court, 4 in U.S. state courts, and 2 in Canadian courts, alleging harm from the security incident. So obviously, this is going to be a complete mess for Blackbaud. We'll see what happens. And this week, Chesapeake Regional Healthcare also disclosed that they were a victim of the Blackbaud data breach. It's going to continue to get worse before it gets better for Blackbaud. They are not out of the woods. We will see if they actually survive. Moving on, let's talk about 23, or actually more than 23,000 hacked databases, because those databases have been made available for download on several hacking forums and Telegram channels in what threat intel analysts are calling the biggest leak of its kind. Now, this database collection is said to have originated from basically a private service called SiteZeroDay.in, which was advertising on hacker forums and other cyber criminals. Now, Site Zero Day operated by collecting hacked databases and then providing access to usernames, email addresses, and even clear text passwords for a daily or a monthly fee. Meaning, if you wanted to rent access to these databases, you could pay them for the month and then run whatever, crime spree you wanted. Now, cyber criminals obviously would use this to identify possible passwords for targeted users and then attempt to breach their account, and on and on. So this is a huge, huge problem, and this is also really underscoring why we need to enable two-factor authentication on everything in our lives, good identity management too, as well as change our passwords regularly, because you could be one of the millions and millions and millions of passwords that are sitting in that dump. Moving on, let's talk about the NRA. This is the Nuclear Regulation Authority in the country of Japan. This is their official nuclear regulators, because a cyber attack took down their official website of the NRA, basically for a number of hours this week. And it is now being reported in Japanese media and elsewhere. Now, they said this past Tuesday that their official website became inaccessible, possibly due to cyber attacks. And according to the Japan Times, the attack came a week after its intranet witnessed, and I quote, an unauthorized access from outside. Now, the NRA reported that it was alerted to the cyber attack when the Japanese government Cybersecurity Institute notified it of its website disruption as they monitor it this past Tuesday afternoon. So we'll see where that goes. But obviously, anything that is attacking nuclear anything, usually not a good thing. Moving on. Let's talk about the Alamance Skin Center, which is one of the outfits that is owned by Cone Health. And so they announced this week that on October 21st, Alamance Skin Center in Burlington was the victim of a phishing scam or a brute force attack that allowed an attacker to gain access to their system. Now, according to Cone Health, a thorough forensic investigation concluded that no patient information was taken in the attack. However, patient data at the practice is unrecoverable, meaning it probably got ransomed out. Now, to quote Frank Riccardi, Cone Health Vice President, and he is the Chief Compliance and Privacy Officer, while this attack was limited to this single practice, we use this as a learning opportunity across Cone Health. So heads up to you if you use Alamance Skin Center for, I'm guessing, all your skin needs. Moving on, let's talk about $1 billion in cryptocurrency, because a password-protected Bitcoin wallet with about almost $1 billion worth of cryptocurrency has been completely cashed out a day before the U.S. presidential election, and nobody knows who's behind this massive transaction. Now, according to Bleeping Computer, the Bitcoin wallet had 69,369.166 on Bitcoins as of November 3rd of 2020. That amount at that time was equivalent to around $970 million US. Now, the wallet saw a transaction overnight that left the balance at $1.38 US, which obviously is nothing compared to 957 million. And so basically it was cashed out by somebody anonymous. Now, interestingly enough, the wallet itself had seen almost no debit activity since 2015, and then suddenly a transaction of $957 million has raised several eyebrows. That's a pretty impressive theft if that database was cracked and that was emptied. And so hopefully the actual owner of that simply cashed out and decided to go buy an island or something, God knows what. So there you go. That is absolutely crazy. And moving on, let's talk about the ongoing cyber fraud operation that are allegedly led by attackers in Gaza, West Bank, and Egypt. Now, cybersecurity researchers at Check Point basically said that there's an ongoing cyber fraud operation led by attackers in those areas that are compromising voice over IP systems, or VoIP servers, for more than 1,200 organizations across 60 countries over the past 12 months. Now, according to the findings by Check Point Research, the threat actors believed to be located in the Palestinian Gaza Strip have targeted Sangoma PBX, which is an open-sourced interface used to message and control Asterisk VoIP phone systems, particularly the SIP, or Session Initiation Protocol servers that run essentially the protocols that make the VoIP work. Now, what they're doing is essentially selling phone numbers, call plans, and live access to compromised voice services from these targeted business, essentially to the highest bidder. And the operators have generated hundreds of thousands of dollars US in profit, alongside equipping them with capabilities to eavesdrop on legitimate calls. SIP is notoriously unreliable when it comes to security, and so here we are. So hopefully that will get cleaned up very well, and hopefully Sangoma PBX and Asterisk VoIP will essentially close any holes they have with this. Moving on. Let's talk about the huge Italian beverage vendor Campari, because the Campari group basically was hit by a ransomware attack that took down a large part of their IT network. Now, the attack took place last Sunday, November 1st, and has been linked to the Ragnar Locker ransomware gang. Ragnar is now trying to extort the company into paying the ransom to decrypt it, and they're also taking that one step further on threatening to release files that they stole from Campari's network if the company doesn't pay for the ransom demand, after this intrusion, and they are running out of time, according to the reports, meaning they're going to dump in probably the next 24 hours or so. So hopefully Campari will get a handle on that, and all will be good. Moving on, let's talk about Deloitte. This is the massive firm all over the globe, the consultancy. A website, this is interesting and somewhat amusing, sorry Deloitte, but a website created for Deloitte to quiz people on their knowledge of hacking tactics has proven itself vulnerable to hacking itself. Now, the site was basically found at an insecure non-HTTPS URL, which was DeloitteHackerIQ.com, and it made its YAML configuration file publicly accessible. And within that file, in clear text, was the actual username and password hard-coded for the site's MySQL database. Now, obviously, this doesn't have any Deloitte customer information in it, and so, it's an isolated thing, but it is not a good look for that which does global cybersecurity consulting. So, heads up if you've ever gone to DeloitteHackerIQ.com and taken their quiz. Moving on, let's talk about the Superior Court of Justice in the country of Brazil. This is the second highest court in the land, and here's what happened. An attacker broke into the Court of Justice, encrypted the entire collection of court cases, and this is according to a source with direct knowledge talking to Brazilian news outlet Bastidor. Now, they also blocked access to mailboxes of court ministers. All data and systems that were on those servers were encrypted. The attacker or attackers were able to then encrypt even the backups of the court data. And as of Thursday, when the article came out that I just read, almost 48 hours after the attack, they still technically just really didn't exist as a court virtually. Court technicians and third-party experts have so far failed to break the cryptography. They may not ever be able to, and at the moment, the entire collection of the second most important court in Brazil is blocked and unavailable. That is obviously a very serious digital attack, and it is considered the most serious digital attack ever committed against a state agency in the country of Brazil. I'm wondering if they were trying somebody with, a lot of power, influence, money, like a drug lord or something, and they were able to hire hackers to just basically lock everything out, including the evidence. So we'll see where that goes, but obviously that's a major blow to one of the highest courts in the country of Brazil, and hopefully they will get that fixed sooner than later. Moving on. Let's talk about Japanese game giant Capcom, because on November 2nd, Capcom's servers were brought down by, and I quote, an unauthorized access carried out by a third party. Now, the group claiming responsibility for the attack say they downloaded about 1 terabyte of data from Capcom, containing everything from employees' visa records to customer bank details to, quote, proprietary business information. Capcom in their own statement said, and I quote, at present there is no indication that any customer information was breached, while they added, and I quote, they are consulting with the police as well as other related authorities. And so here we go. Hopefully Capcom will get unstuck from that soon. Moving on, let's talk about several companies and large corporations out of Israel. Now, they are basically being breached and having their systems encrypted using a new strain of ransomware called Pay2Key. This appears to be a targeted attack against Israeli networks alone. Now, the first attacks were seen in late October, but they have grown in numbers while basically remaining contained in the country of Israel. Basically, this is a Israel-specific ransomware attack that is going on. And to quote Israeli cybersecurity firm Check Point, they published this alert today. And I quote, 2 days ago, and I quote, as days go by, more of the reported ransomware attacks turn out to be related to the new Pay2Key ransomware. Now, according to the company, these attacks have been happening after midnight, obviously when these companies have less of their IT staff at work, so it's harder to basically detect that intrusion. And the initial entry point for all of these intrusions appear to be weakly secured RDP, or remote desktop protocol services. This is something that no company should have publicly exposed at this point. Remote desktop is just notoriously insecure. So if your company is publicly opening up RDP without anything to layer it on, like a VPN, that you are doing yourself a serious disservice. We can evade that very easily. Moving on, let's head back to the United States and talk about Toledo, Ohio's public school system. Now, this is an update from October when I first talked about this, because they are now reversing course as of this past Thursday and admitting that the district was a victim of a ransomware attack. They did not specify when I originally reported on this. And basically, they were saying that for weeks they were unaware of anyone demanding a ransom payment in connection with the computer disruption that happened on their very first day of school. So ransomware attack in Toledo in public schools. Heads up if you have your kids go there. Now you know what happened. Moving on. Let's talk about the massive corporation Luxottica. They had a data breach that exposed the personal and protected health information for patients of some of their subsidiaries of LensCrafters, Target Optical, iMed, and other eye care practices. Now, Luxottica disclosed that their appointment scheduling application basically got hit and hacked on August 5th of 2020. Luxottica states that they first learned about this breach on August 9th, and after investigating the attack, determined on August 28th that the attacker had gained access to patients' personal information. Now, Luxottica is the world's largest eyewear company with a portfolio of well-known eyeglasses brands, including the ones I'm wearing as well. They own Ray-Ban, Oakley, Oliver Peoples, Ferrari, Michael Kors, Bulgari, Armani, Prada, Chanel, Coach, and on and on and on. So if you have some funky glasses, basically 95% chance that your health insurance and your glasses are Luxottica, because they also own VSP, at least here in the United States. That is the largest eye care insurance. So there you go. It is a very serious issue. They also own LensCrafters, Target Opticals, iMed, Pearl Vision, and other retail outlets. So you may want to check with them if you'd schedule an appointment in August of this year. Moving on. Let's talk about the grocery e-commerce platform Big Basket. Now, this is out of India. The research team at Cybele found a database of Big Basket for sale basically in the dark web for over $40,000 US. Now, the leak contains a database portion with the table name, basically, which has the member names of it. It's a SQL database about 15 gig in size, and it has 20 million records for user data, according to Cybele's blog. Now, the data put out there for sale includes names, email IDs, password hashes, contact numbers, both mobile and home phone, address, date of birth, location, IP addresses of logins, and much more. Cybele also mentioned that the passwords that the company uses, in terms of passwords, the company uses a one-time password sent through SMS, which keeps on changing every time a user logs in. So if that is the case, then odds are the passwords that are in the database are going to be irrelevant, because they're going to continuously be changing to secure that authentication method. So hopefully that is good. And finally, this is our last breach of the week. We're going to be talking about the large Swedish insurance giant Folksam Group. Now, they say they inadvertently allowed some of the world's biggest tech companies to access the private data of their patients in a breach that affected almost 1 million people that are essentially clients of them. Now, Folksam Group, which oversees $50 billion in insurance assets, said that it shared client data with Facebook, Google, Microsoft, LinkedIn, and Adobe, according to a statement this past Tuesday. And they said that they had discovered this breach after an internal audit. Now, I find that to be very interesting because, one, that completely screams GDPR violation, which is going to be a massive problem because they have essentially just dumped these records or given Facebook, Google, the two largest data miners on the planet, access into your personal patient data. So they are probably honing their advertising, for these 1 million clients. That is a huge violation of privacy, and we're going to see what happens there. But we could be looking at the largest fine possibly in GDPR, given the scope of what this is. And this really underscores the need, when you are talking about sensitive information, whether it's personal financial information or health information or anything else, is to get assurances, from the people that are going to be holding it, from the organizations, to make sure that you have some kind of legal recourse if they accidentally start opening up things like Facebook data mining and Google data mining. I think that's a very serious problem. And I think it really underscores the issue we have, not just with protecting our data, but with the absolute need and desire for the Facebooks and Googles of the world to get their hooks into everything to continue to data mine that. That's what they do. That's their job. They may offer us a way to yell at our friends about politics or search for whatever we want or give us free email. But that is all because they are data mining all of it. And I think it just behooves all of us to remember that. And it is especially egregious when they are doing it to health data for 1 million people. I don't care if they're in Sweden or South Korea or anywhere in between. It's not cool. And so hopefully that will get straightened out, and hopefully those people will be compensated for the loss of that privacy. And so those are your breaches of the week. Another insane week. Were you affected? Let me know. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, everyone.